Sorry about that. Mia, you on?
Hey, Real, it's Khalid, not Mia.
Oh, hi,
Mia's
Khalid.
helping assist monitor Euler committee meeting
Oh,
tonight.
no, no, that's fine. I assumed. Hey, Khalid, how are you?
All right. Just let me know if you need assistance. Also, I'm not certain if Mia was able to. I know that you inquired about any recommendations or references for education committee initiatives. Fred actually sent out a document at the start of the year with references and recommendations. I don't know if Mia was able to get that to you, and if I can try to look for it and send that to you as soon as
No,
possible.
she emailed me something for in regards to budget line items, you mean?
Let me see.
Well, come help me. I don't know what happened.
Okay. And so just for process, Khalid,
I
are
don't
you
hear.
staying on during these meetings? How does this you manage the platform, or what? Just so I know what to expect.
I'm sorry, Real. Please say that again. It was a little choppy there.
Yeah, are you on? Are you staying on throughout this meeting? What do you?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. So, I'll just be assisting you, of course, muting and admitting people into the room. And of course, if you need my assistance for reference or anything like that, just of course reach out. But I will be muted, of course, and just let me know when you need me to chime in or anything.
that's great. Okay.
In the meantime, I'll just make sure that Mia sent you that document, and if not, then I'll work on trying to locate that and send that to you so you can have that for your records. Okay.
That's great.
All right.
Wonderful. I'll get started shortly. Welcome everybody. WebEx. I'm new to WebEx as well. I'm more familiar with Zoom and Google Meet and some other platforms, not so much with WebEx. So if everybody can just give me a moment to orient myself, and then we'll get started. I'm currently on two screens actually, so I can also take notes. And I'm not sure if everybody can hear me. So if you can, please, if you're in a position to turn on your camera, that'd be great. I think that makes for more intimate meeting. And if you can hear me, can you raise your thumb for me, please? I see some people that I cannot hear. Okay, Kim, how are you? Thank you. So if you'll bear with me 1 second, I'll just get organized here. All right. Hey Khalid, if you could give me some guidance here, can you, because I don't quickly see a kind of like a gallery view for WebEx.
So if you're looking at the top of the screen there in WebEx,
Mm-hmm.
you should maybe have some options there like active speaker, video view, panelist view. Are you seeing any of that?
No, I don't. I'm in a, let me see. No, I'm in a on a Chromebook, so it looks like I may have some limitations. Give me a second.
Hmm.
Connected video system, switch audio. So I'm, because I cannot see everybody at the same time is what I'm.
At the same time. Okay, yeah. So then you'll definitely want to, once you get the chance, and you can hover over the people, you should be able to get like a grid view. That's where you can see everybody at the same time, if they have their cameras turned on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do not see a grid view option here for me.
Okay.
That may be a function of it being on a Chromebook. I know it's a other solution. All right, I'm going to close this one. Just be on one screen. All right. Well, welcome everybody. It is 7:05, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the first official meeting of the Education and Library Committee. If you were surprised about the library edition, you are not the only one. I certainly was. Maybe I was the only one. The Education and Library Committee, and I was honored to be asked by our chair, Fred Baptiste, to chair this committee this year, and I'm delighted to do so, and so I'm excited to be here. As I said, I'm getting a little familiar with the WebEx platform, and I do not have the setup where you can or the full gallery view where everybody is, where I can see everybody, and so that was making my life a little bit harder. But if you are, I think you are able to see me. And I'm just going to get started with a quick round of introductions, and so I'll just call you off the participation list that I can see, and I would love to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we can take a look at the full composition of this committee, and yeah, you may know each other. I know some of you, but not everybody. And so why don't we start with a round of introductions? If you want to introduce yourself, your affiliation with either the board or the committee, and perhaps a wish or desire or a hope that you have for this committee for this year. So let's start there. And since I know you, Beverly, I'm going to call you out to get us started. All yours.
Hi, Rio.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, how everybody? How are you?
Good.
My wish, well, first of all, I thought I was joining education only. So now to know it's education library, I don't really have a wish. I think I'm gonna just see where it goes.
Great. All right. Well, good to see you. Good to hear you again, Beverly. Juanita, feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, as you see, my name is Juanita Randolph. I'm quite new to the committee, so I too will want to see where it is going.
That's great. You want to share a little bit about yourself, your affiliation, how you get to the committee or board?
Okay, in the community, and I try to be active. I've attended some of the school board meetings. I'm retired, and I was very active with in education, and I was also active with the parent teacher with the PTA. So I'm quite interested in what's happening in schools and how I can contribute to the positiveness of education.
That's great. Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. Kim?
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the people that live upstairs, you will use the front.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is
My
Kim
hallway
Robinson.
door, where you go in the bathroom, in that room, is that?
Let's see.
Oh, hold on one second.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I definitely could be ready.
Okay. As I was saying, good afternoon. My name is Kim Robinson, and I represent Councilmember Alika Ampry-Samuel, representing the 41st Council District, and I'm just here as a guest.
Great. Happy to have you, Kim. Thank you. We have, is it Lorianne? Do I pronounce that correctly? And Lorianne is still on mute. I'll just give you a moment to unmute. Okay, we'll get back to Lorianne and Mamzelle. Again, please let me know if I pronounced it correctly.
Yes, you did. Hi, Mamzelle Adolphine, an educator, live in the community and also involved in the Lincoln Road Community Garden. I'm actually one of the organizers. And just basically interested to see what we can do to help the schools.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Naomi.
Good evening. How are you? My
Wow.
name is Naomi Baptiste. I'm from CEC 17, and just happy to be here.
That's great. Good. So, and my name is Riel Pierboms. I am the executive director of Trailblazers, Trailblazer Camps. We run a day camp, a sleepaway camp, a number of recess programs in the days of regular school, and I don't have my video on. Sorry, and a series of after-school programs, elementary and middle schools. The majority of them are in CEC 17 and surrounding areas, and have been on the board for the last, I think, 5 years or so. So it's been an interesting run. I had an opportunity to participate in the youth committee over the years with Ada, and I have I chaired the economic development committee 1 year. So that is me. Ada.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm well.
I'm just a guest. I'm still on the youth committee, but I'm always interested in education. So any way I can help. So I just decided to pop in as a guest. So thank you for having me.
That's great. All right, so let's get things underway. Again, welcome everybody. It is, I think it's exciting to start a new committee. As to Beverly's point, the Education and Library Committee, my suspicion is that it is because the Education and the library piece is the way the title is listed in the bylaws. That probably has over time just become the Education Committee, but in the bylaws, this committee is described as the Education and Library Committee. I think it will probably be up to us to decide where we put the emphasis, but that is what the committee originally was named and is currently listed as such in the CB9 bylaws. Just want to take a look. Lorianne, I do want to circle back to you for a moment. Are you back on?
And breaking it down and trying to see, okay, the why.
Okay. All right. So, let's get our meeting underway, and so I'll share my wish for the committee with you. I'm an educator as well. I was a high school teacher for many years, and a social worker. I've been in youth service through this environmental ed program that I'm running now, but I've always been engaged in a number of different educational initiative over the years. And education, more traditional education is what I particularly care about, and especially making sure that young people have access to education, because that's still a major issue in my view. So what I'm hoping for is that the committee can do something meaningful for the community. There's often, many great things to do, but I think it's often most helpful if a committee focuses on one or two things that they can really get accomplished. And I look forward to working with you and working together and doing something meaningful that the people of the young people of CB9, especially, and the schools in particular, can be served by. So I wanted to start with just a couple of housekeeping items. They're in the agenda as well. I'll just quickly talk through those, and then we can get started. I think we'll spend most of today talking through ideas that folks might have and how we might organize the committee. And so I should say that I feel very strongly that a committee chair is a facilitator of the work, and that it is not necessarily up to me to either do or decide. It is I'm by nature a very collaborative person, and so I really look forward to doing things with you and collaboratively. And I think we'll spend most of today talking about how to what exactly we can focus on for this year. So a couple of practical things, a couple of housekeeping items. First one is that we're required, of course, to keep minutes. I have included or have created a shared document that was already shared with you via email, but I'll share it again after this meeting, that is used for the minute keeping as well as the agenda building. It's an open document that everybody has access to. And once a set of minutes is done, then Mia or Khalid will prepare them for the larger board or for the executive committee. And when an agenda is done, it can be pulled from that shared document and be prepared for the general board or the executive committee. And I'll take minutes today. I would request that we take turns on that and just rotate on taking minutes for each one of the meetings. And so we spread the work out that way. We are scheduled for every second Tuesday of the month at the moment. So this is our time. Originally, we were scheduled to be on the same day as the youth committee meeting to allow us to maybe merge and collaborate at certain times. The decision, I think, just from a practical perspective, was made that we needed to be on different days. So youth committee is on the first Tuesday. We are on the second Tuesday. If the need emerges in the short term for us to work together on something, then we can figure out other meeting times to do that. And please feel free to interrupt me if there's anything you want to add to what you're hearing. So tools and communication, we are largely obviously going to meet over Zoom, over WebEx in this particular case, and communicate through email. I've been made aware of any kind of communication that happens in large groups to avoid any kind of meeting requirements and notification requirements around meetings. So if extended communication happens over email that involves a number of people, that is something we should avoid. But any kind of communication around the meeting dates and any kind of practical matters will happen over email, and the meetings obviously are going to take place over WebEx and Zoom. And the office, CB9 office, will continue to give us guidance about that. We are, and I am in a position to add membership. We currently have, according to the names I was given by the office, other than myself, 3 board members, Beverly, Dexter, and Lorianne. I think Dexter is not on the call yet, I believe. And I see some other people joined, so I'll ask you to introduce yourself in just a moment. And Lorianne is on the call, but we haven't.
Lorianne Woolsey.
Woolsey. Oh, Lorianne. Okay, good. There you go. Great. And then we have 5 community residents on the committee. We are in a position to add committee members if we feel so inclined, and so that's something that is the board chair is able to do. So I haven't given that enough thought yet, but I will over the next couple of days and weeks. If you have any folks that you feel strongly about, that you feel would make a good contribution to the committee as it kind of gets started, please let me know, and we can take a look at that. Demetria, I think you weren't in earlier for introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what your hopes are for the committee?
Hi, my name is Demetria Farrow. I just joined the committee. I hope to contribute as much as I can based on my knowledge to support the committee. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 22 years, and I hope I can use my experience in the school building and with working with students and children and families to help support the committee.
That's great. Where do you teach, Demetria?
I am an English teacher.
And what school are you in?
Right now, I'm in Canarsie.
Canarsie, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Lorianne, I don't think you introduced yourself yet. I think you went off. You went mute again.
I'm sorry, you talking to me?
But Lorianne?
Oh, Lorian. I'm sorry.
For some reason, I think the volume is going in and out, or maybe that's just my connection. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am Marianne Woolsey. I am a board member. I've been a board member for going on 2 years. Currently, I work for the Department of Education, so hopefully I can contribute to in some way. This is my first time attending one of these meetings for this committee.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what to expect, but in whatever way you may need me, I can be some assistance.
That's great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sharon, I see you on the list. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. And let's see, Joe should see my face. I don't know if that's going to work as well too. So I am Sharon Wedderburn. I am the Youth and Education Chair for Community Board 8. I think that both of our boards should collaborate and we should not let Eastern Parkway separate us. So I'll be popping into meetings throughout the year.
That is great, Sharon. And I'd love to connect with you over email because I could not agree more. Great. So let's see, that's everybody on my list at the moment. So let's move on. Finishing up housekeeping. Standard meeting structure, call to order and attendance taking, that gets recorded into the minutes. We have, of course, an agenda to follow, and guests are permitted to attend the meeting. Because of the Zoom structure, typically guests are, or in the usual format, guests are not are supposed to be called on to participate. But I think I expect this to be a small meeting crowd, and we certainly want it to be comfortable and enjoyable for everybody to participate. Now, to the extent possible, and this is a kind of Zoom and WebEx and Google Meet pro tip, that if your situation, your background allows you to be off mute, then that is most comfortable. So I think these meetings are most efficient when folks are on camera, on the meet there, and they can be unmuted. I understand often that's not easy to do. I also have a couple of kids running around that often are loud, and it can be done. But if you can, it simply makes for a smoother kind of meeting experiences where people can chime in, especially when you're in the middle of conversations. Sorry, a call to order and attendance taking. We follow the agenda that everybody can participate building in the lead up to the meeting. There's a public comment period specifically if members of the public have not been able to speak up yet. We spend a moment to talk about what specifically needs to be reported to either the executive board or the full board. And then finally, there's a chairperson report from myself if there's anything in particular to mention. So I think that's the structure that I would like to follow this year. So that's housekeeping. Any questions, comments, or suggestions? Okay. Great.
Question.
Yep. Go ahead.
Question. Yes. You mentioned the bylaws previously. Is it possible to get a copy of the bylaws for this committee?
Yeah, so there are no separate bylaws just for the committee. They're the CB9 bylaws, but I'll make sure they get sent out to the entire committee. And so I read through them this afternoon. There's nothing that particularly pertains to the Education Committee other than that the Education and Library Committee is mentioned. But there is some guidance, general guidance for the Education Committee.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other comments on housekeeping? Any other questions? Great. So I had set an item of prior work by the committee. That's going to be a very short item because the quick answer is that I have not received yet and have not been able to had an opportunity to visit CB9 yet to see if there's any kind of work from any predecessors or prior committees. So my understanding is that the Education Committee has not been very active, and so I don't know when the last year was that there was a lot of activity. I think perhaps there's some people. I think Ada, for example, on this call might know the information in that. Maybe Beverly, but I do not have a lot of information about any prior work that the committee has done.
I know Fred had just one meeting last year, and he was the only one that was there, and then I showed up. So that's about the only meeting that I know of from last year.
Okay. And prior years, anything that happened for education?
No, offhand, no. Fred would maybe have more information.
Yeah, and I asked Mia to pass on any information to me that the office has, but I don't think there's a lot of historical information for the moment. Okay. Beverly, are you aware of anything?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm with Ada. Last year, education was kind of pure, and if my memory serves me correctly, it's the year before. So you'll be making footprints. Yay!
Nice. Okay, great, good. All right.
Oh, sorry, there was one thing. Simone did have a principal's luncheon. You were at, weren't you? I believe it's at the board office. She had a principal's luncheon. She had a principal's.
I remember that. That's right. But that's 2 years ago, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like 2 years ago. So that's one thing that they had to gather information from the principals and what their needs are, etc. So that's one thing that actually did happen.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So going out of order a little bit because I have to pull up a note from Mia on the budget process, but I wanted to move on to the item that really the meat of today's meeting, which is to start thinking about how an education committee could be of meaning, helpful. And I think helpful in this particular world means helpful in light of in light of everything that's going on in the world and the continued pandemic, and of course in light of specifically what our schools or more broadly educational needs we might have in the community. So I certainly my own thoughts that are kind of informed by my own work, but I would love to get an idea. And so why don't we just open the floor and start talking about any ideas. So the work of a committee like this is anything from providing information and structure to the people that need it, to advocacy work, to actually organizing events and opportunities for young people to connect to services, to supportive services for schools and for principals, and really very broad. There's no particular agenda that CB9 sets for us, and so it's really up to us to define what the work needs to be. So who would like to start?
Question again. This is Juanita Randolph. Now, I'm not quite sure of the committee, the responsibilities of what this committee will do. However, I had heard that Assemblywoman Diana Richardson had an education committee. Are you familiar with that committee?
I am.
All right. I think that they support the schools. I don't know exactly all that they do. Will there be a conflict between these two committees?
It's a good question. The committee hasn't run in a while. The Diana Richardson one, I think that's also about a year ago. The last time I spoke to her about it is probably about a year ago, and at the time she said it was something that hadn't gotten enough attention and that she had not been very active on it. So I did attend some of the meetings that she organized, but I'm not sure where it currently is.
Okay. All right.
I think Ada mentioned something about having a principal's luncheon, and she also mentioned something which I think is important, is that I think we should start from getting to know what the needs are of the schools, as opposed to saying that we're going to work on a particular thing. I mean, as an educator myself, I think I understand that usually if we ask the schools to do some sort of survey, or if a survey, a luncheon, whatever it is, just to gather an idea of what schools need, and then we can work from that. When we do that, we'll be sure that we'll be actually meeting the school's needs.
Riel, I think that's a good idea too, because everybody now is venturing into new territory. And from what I can tell through the news and other things, everybody's still struggling. So I think if we jump in and go, here are our hands, what do you want us to do? I think, we'll be better serving the educational community. But how would you envision the library component? That's a question for me.
Great question, and I think the answer is for us to define whether we feel that that is currently a relevant or helpful focus for us. Again, my understanding is that it had been lumped together as kind of part and parcel of an educational focus. I don't recall at any time that the education committee or the youth committee was engaged with the library in any way, and whether it's a local library or central library. But that's not to say that couldn't be the case. So I don't necessarily have a vision for that. I would agree with, I think Juanita, right? You mentioned that a needs assessment needs to drive really anything that we do.
But the library is also part of education. The library
Sure.
basically has educational events and things like that. So it's not really separate. I'm not sure why they name it, because the library is part of education. So educational events can be held at the library or can be sponsored by the library, if you look at it that way.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, and I don't think the library was separate, right? I think it just had been dropped from the name, so I don't think that there was a separate library committee. I think that there hasn't been any engagement, so I think it's an interesting consideration just to bring that back in.
So I believe that we can support the schools and the community by for library and for learning, because many students in the community right now are at home learning. So I think a book drive would help support people in the community. I believe that tutoring services would help, and events like a spelling bee would help the children in the community, because right now many of them are not in school buildings. They're at home learning online. So those are some of the things that I think can help the children in the community and the schools in terms of support. What do you guys think about that?
I think those are great ideas. I think it also you highlight that education can focus on the needs of the schools, but education more broadly can mean other things as well, right? And educational needs that kids might have at home. I think in particular now the needs are probably a lot more broad than we ever could imagine.
Hi, this is Naomi. I would think that we can. Okay, so put it in the kitchen. No, I think that one of the things that's probably we can focus on too is how to help adults in learning certain things, as if they're not too internet savvy or computer savvy, where it can help them more with the educational part if their kids are 100% remote or blended, and also probably just help parents or just adults in general feel more comfortable with being on the computer all the time, because if it's not as if you don't need it, you don't use it. But now because of the need, it's more of a need. You might want to do a resume, or you want to do, a lot of functions that the library used to, would help with. So maybe a resume, maybe some employment opportunities, or to see what skills you have that you can help in the education field for people who might be 100% remote or something like that.
That's great. Yeah, and I think it's probably true that this new remote world is here to stay, right? This is not things are not going to things are going to change, and we'll return to some sense of normalcy, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I think it's probably fair to say that some degree of remote is going to continue. And so there'll be continued need for folks to fully adjust to that and know how to help their kids or know how to help themselves if they cannot as easily walk into a library or as easily walk into the CB9 office as they've had in the past.
Can I ask a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead first.
The question to the educators that are out there, and also the parents. What I would find challenging, my daughter's grown now, but what I would find challenging is having to actually educate my child in math or English, depending on what grade, especially like middle school. The verbiage is different. Everything's changed from when I went to school. So is there any way that in the education system they assist the parents in actually how to teach the children? Because I know some parents are really struggling trying to teach their children even the math and the English.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a great idea and a great real known issue, right? That the supporting your kid in a remote learning environment is easy for some and very, very challenging for others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I would expect that to be a huge need. And I certainly agree that the older they get, the harder it gets, right? The older math grades, middle and upper, middle school and upper, those grades, that math gets very complicated.
I also think we need, this is Juanita, to find out exactly what are some of the things that the schools are doing in regard to helping the adults or helping, the parents. In my grandson's school, they had a Google Classroom for the parents. And I think that, that can really help, and they can begin to understand some of the things that are taking place and how this classroom works.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know the things I saw, I didn't, this is unfamiliar to me also. I didn't quite understand some of the assignments and realizing that assignments are given now on a Saturday or a Sunday, that the child has to go back and look in and see if an assignment has been given. So it's not as it was before, a daily assignment, the day you attend. It could be 2 days later.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it may not be on a fixed schedule the way kids are used to, right? That may be on their own time where they're responsible or the family's responsible to make sure that something is finished. And they may not be aware that something is posted.
You didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
That assignments are given. And then, even now, you're learning that your assignment is due at 11 o'clock. Your assignment is due at 3:30. So I think that's one of the things parents can be made aware of, because you're not even going to the email, through
Mm-hmm.
perchance we happen to go there and find these assignments.
Yeah. And that's really, some of that is pacing and schedule, but some of it is just straight up technical experience, right? Just to know where to look, because it's and Zoom and I know for my kids, it's and Zoom and Google Meet and Google Classroom and Nearpod and Flipgrid and so there are so many different platforms that they have to manage in any given day. And I consider myself to be fairly savvy, and yet it makes my head spin some days.
The schools usually provide some sort of training now or videos for both for the parents and for the kids. before anything begins. So there's usually that. I mean, I taught technology for some years, and usually what you do, you provide these kinds of training for parents and for the kids. And somebody asked about whether there is like some sort of help for parents who don't know certain things. Again, I know at the school I taught at, we used to have sessions, math and ELA sessions for parents to sort of walk parents through some of the curriculum. So I would expect that now, I'm not sure if they're doing that still, but usually that probably has gone online where they provide some kind of online training as well for parents to kind of walk them through. But again, I mean, I come back to the same point I made earlier. I think that these are some great ideas, but I think to make sure that we are actually meeting the needs, that we need to do some kind of survey to really find out where, in which direction we want to go.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's just a helpful kind of brainstorm to kind of, you know, kind of get a grasp of the landscape of the various things that could be possible, to get our hands a little bit around the things that a committee could be doing. I think something that could be very helpful, and that this brainstorm can inform a little bit, is for us as a committee to take a moment to decide and craft collectively what our agreed upon mission statement is for the year. Right, the community board has a mission statement, but I think each committee has their own kind of goals for the year, and so listening to these kinds of the current this brainstorm and the different ideas that people bring out. Again, some of it is advocacy, some of it is training, some of it is informational, and so what is that beginning to sound like? Perhaps a good next question. Listening to all of this, and somebody were to ask you, okay, you're part of the education committee, education library committee. What does that committee do? How would you begin to describe that?
This is Naomi. We could start off as a collective of excuse me, I'm just thinking about it. A collective of people, or a collective of community board members who I guess I got that part. That's all.
That's a start. That's a start. I love it. Collective of community members, board members, or community members. Okay. Does anybody want to pick it up? How would you describe what this committee does?
Riel, I think for me, I have to see what the teacher wants first. It's hard for me right now to contribute or give any ideas, because I can see what one of the other members said, that the library would play a part. And I do think, since we are education and library, that we can examine how can the library truly support education at this point. Maybe that's what would be instrumental for us. We can see where it would help the teachers, it would help the parents, not in its traditional role though, in the role that education is in right now, where parents need support, where kids need support. How would we do that? Even if it's nothing but to be the intermediary to introduce, this is the part the library could play in your education or your current classroom. But outside of that, right now, I would be at wit's end as to figure out how to support the education component.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
I'm sorry. Can you just the question again? I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on the question.
So brainstorm about what we could do, and the second part was now listening to some of these brainstorm ideas, whether we can use some of that to start formulating what we view the work of this committee is. I think one of the things that we could do together between, as a kind of early start now and then into the next meeting, is come up with our own statement. This is what, this is what we are and this is what we're not. I think it can be helpful just to decide this is where we're going to focus our efforts, right? If a committee is just saying, well, we're going to support education, that could be so many things. I think it's helpful to take a moment to decide what the charter, what the mission of this committee is going to be for the year. And so the question was, you're on this committee, somebody asks you, what does this committee do? How would you describe it?
Oh, okay. So I guess when I think about education committee, I think more as like an advocacy and a resource for both parents and teachers, the schools. So I'm not sure if that's the route you guys are going, but I'm thinking advocacy and I'm thinking resource. So for instance, I heard someone mention about parents needing help just to navigate the online learning system, and I think that would be a really good way to start as far as resource for parents. For myself, because I'm doing Zoom, I'm doing web, I'm doing all of that, and it's a learning process. But I'm on a computer, I'm using 3 or 4 computers at a time, and for many parents who just trying to get on the internet, logging on. So I think about that resource, being able to find that room where they can actually go to you guys and say, these are all the trainings, these are all where you can find this. This is, that's what I'm thinking about resource. But on the other side, I'm thinking about advocacy. So we will be the group that will be advocating for both the principals of the school and for the parents and the teachers. So I don't know if that if I went all the way off or if it's in line with what you guys were doing. Now, this is my first meeting, and I just wanted to hear what you guys were about. So. And so
it is also the committee's first meeting. So so we're very listening. So you're jumping in at just the right time.
Okay.
So I would say yes, I would agree with all of those things: advocacy and resources for parents, teachers, and schools. Principals. Anybody else? How would you begin to describe the work that the committee does? Okay. So I'll share with you some of my experience in the last couple of weeks. So we're a provider, and so we run after-school programs in a number of different schools. Some of those programs are publicly funded, like state funded, for example, and Empire State after-school program that gets fully funded by the state, and students and families do not pay to participate at all. And we have programs that operate on a fee for service, on a sliding scale fee, depending on the school and depending on the particulars of the program in the school. And we were one of the providers who also had to close down in March, right, when all the schools went remote. And so we've spent a couple of months doing a number of different things to supportive services, continued after school and enrichment services over digital platforms, and making things available to students who had to be home. And then over the summer started to think through what after school is going to look like, coming into the fall. And by the way, we did end up running a day camp, an in-person day camp this year, is one of the very few programs that was able to actually operate. And so we spent a lot of time working with the city to get the permits and the protocols up to speed to make sure that we could run a safe summer camp. And we were able to do that for 140 families or so, largely from CB9. And so we were particularly excited about that, and are excited to continue into the fall and provide service. It has proven to be extremely, extremely challenging. And one big challenge that we're facing at the moment is the following. And so schools are up and running. Most schools are on some kind of blended schedule where they have a portion of the students in school, right, and not everybody. But the DOE has indicated that after-school programs are allowed to operate. Slowly, answers are coming, although there's still quite a few answers outstanding, and some of the specific guidance is only now coming in. But after-school programs are allowed to run for the students who are in the building, and so we are one of those programs, and we're in 7 schools, and so we started to reach out to our principal. What we found out is that the permit cost that usually is covered by the city and is now getting passed on to each individual school, and the school then passes it on to the provider. So the principal say to us, well, you have to get your own permit because we can't pay for it. Well, the permit costs have been tripled by the city. And so for one of our schools had a permit cost of $80 a day. It is now $240 a day. And, the programs, of course, is also much smaller, so if you can only run at a third capacity and you have a permit cost is 3 times as much, it is literally a 10-fold increase per student as far as permit cost goes. And when we talk to the DOE about that, the DOE the position they've taken is it's additional cleaning cost. You're going to be in a building, it's additional cleaning cost. We know this not to be false and to be not true, because the DOE has also given guidance to the principals that says there's no extra cleaning between the end of the school day and the after-school program start. Cleaning will happen on the regular schedule at 5 o'clock. So programs have to be out of the building, and that's when cleaning happens regardless. And yet permits have tripled. It's really an amazing thing. And so we've just started this week or last week and this week to beat the drum on this and write to all the local council members and all the local officials in our direct area, as well as some of the kind of bigger parties like PACE is a big advocacy agency in Manhattan for all after schools in the city, and every news outlet that I can get my hands on, because it's not getting any attention, and it's over the backs of working families to pass on the costs of permits and then triple the cost of permits without any real reason for it. Has anybody heard about this? Is anybody familiar with this?
No, not at all.
I
No.
haven't heard anything about this.
I haven't heard anything either.
Yeah, and for clarification, right, there are publicly funded programs like DYCD or Compass, funded programs that and those programs, they operate for free and the permit cost is covered by the city. So schools don't have to pay, the provider doesn't have to pay. But there are hundreds of smaller providers that also provide, sliding scale, fee for service, and including private programs, by the way. They face the same issue, but I'm less concerned about them. We're particularly concerned about being able to serve people and making sure that program's actually accessible. So, we have a limited kind of sample of schools, but from them we certainly understand or already can see that after school is just going to become expensive. So you either have a free program in your school and there's limited seats. And if you want to choose another program where a fee is involved, the fees are going to become so high that nobody can really afford it anymore. And that is a huge problem. And so that's an advocacy piece for me, right? Where the committee here can figure out how they can advocate for the schools in the district.
Well, I just posted something in the chat, just a brief,
Sure.
I suppose, statement for our mission, which maybe we can work on, develop it. So if you guys take a look at it, it's posted in the chat.
Did it go to everyone?
Yes, it did.
I didn't get it yet. Is this Mamzelle?
Yes, it is.
I do not. I only have.
You?
Uh-huh.
I only have a chat from Demetria to everybody.
Yeah, it's posted. So basically, what I just wrote is just brief. I said we advocate for the community by providing needed resources and services to schools, parents, and the community at large. So as I said, perhaps this could be something that we could develop some more in terms of a mission.
That sounds fantastic. Cindy, how does everybody else feel about that?
I think it sums up what you were saying and what everyone is saying.
Zell, would you mind trying to shoot it over again so I can copy it? Because it's not coming in the chat.
Okay, let's do it again. Okay, so I just sent it. The other thing I wanted to mention before I forget too, you mentioned communicating by email. Is anyone familiar with Slack?
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of, because email sometimes get a bit of, you receive so many emails, and with Slack, we can always continually communicate and build on each other in terms of what we send. We can always see what was sent before. So that might be something we might want to consider as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge Slack fan, and it's something that we use heavily in work as well. Not everybody has access to it necessarily. I certainly would be in favor of it, but I would need to check with the office, because this is something Fred spoke to me about, to be careful around public meeting laws. So if there's an exchange on Slack going on about a particular topic, it could be perceived as a meeting, right? As opposed to just so if there's any kind of sustained exchange about something, that could be viewed as a meeting, and then it has to be publicly accessible.
Oh, I see. All right.
I think it's a good idea. It's worthwhile looking at, and I can ask the office for some guidance, because I think
if not Slack, at least maybe even a Google document or something instead, to try to get away from a lot of emails. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could have a shared Google document where you send information.
Yeah, that we already have, and I'll send that out again. So there is a CB9 document that can be used, and certainly for communication on and I think also from being on prior committees, if you're emailing about a particular topic, right? You're working on a conference, and you've been assigned something, and you're going back and forth with somebody. Well, that's not considered a meeting. But if there's a discussion about something, right? Well, a number of people chime in at different points of views, et cetera. Again, that could be construed a meeting. And so the issue with Slack is not fundamentally different from email to either. The same.
It's just everything in one place.
Yeah.
Okay, so I sent you the text again.
Yeah, I don't know. Am I not the only one not getting it? I'm not. It's not coming through for me.
Yeah, I got it.
I got it.
That's weird.
I didn't. I only have Demetrius.
I only have Demetrius as well.
Juanita didn't get it either.
So I'll connect you with you. Yeah, and then so I can get it to you, and I can put it in a document. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll send you via email then.
That's great. Thank you. Any thoughts, any comments, any other kind of brainstorm items?
I guess I have one question. Do we know how many schools, broken down by high school, elementary, and middle schools, that we have within CB9?
That's Ada, right? I think that information exists. I don't have it. I also know that this is I think the education committee that Diana Richardson had. I know they did a comprehensive breakdown. But that this document is probably at least 2 years old, but that information does exist. I think that's extremely helpful to have, but it's definitely something we don't need to recreate. That work has been done.
Yes, we can probably look that up on Department of City Planning. They have interactive web maps where you can break down by districts and see what facilities are currently, or public facilities are available in that district. So they'll give you a breakdown of the schools and what the grade brackets and so forth like that. So that does exist. And then I also wanted to point out, I tried to leave a link to the fiscal year 21 needs assessment budget request statement from Brooklyn Community Board 9, and it has pages from 11 to 14, the youth education and child welfare budget assessments. And so if I can also send it in an email later so everybody can access it, take a look at it, and maybe use that as reference for perhaps education related needs of the districts, because we do have our fiscal year 22 needs assessment budget requests submission deadline at the end of this month, October 30th. And the board will be having a virtual public hearing prior to our virtual general board, for public input and comment as well. So I just wanted to put that on your radars.
Okay, yeah, that's that's a tight timeline, huh? But I guess with COVID and us not getting a first meeting in until October, that's been that makes it difficult.
Right, and the very principals luncheon that we were discussing earlier that Simone held, that happened in early October, late September, early October, because the needs assessment was coming up. And so it's really crunch time. I just point out and let you all know.
Riel, there is one other thing I wanted to suggest is, usually when I'm working in groups, when anybody's working in groups, one of the good things to do is to agree on a set of norms for meetings. I don't know if the board has like norms written down, but usually what you do as a group, you agree together to abide to these norms, things like being respectful, these kind of things. I think it's important to do that.
Hi, Ms. Delphine. Yes, we have a set of bylaws, yes, that already dictate, or
bylaws that dictate the norms of the meeting.
Right. You can go on our website, and I can send you that at a later time. But you can go on our webpage and look at the Brooklyn Community Board 9 bylaws, and it would it doesn't necessarily dictate the norms, but it just only lays out in general, like meeting standards and practices. And then we also have our CB9 rules of conduct, which go into much more detail about conduct in meetings, and we typically read these prior to our general board meetings, but of course it can be applied across our committee meetings as well.
Okay, thank you.
And Khalid, thank you. That would be helpful if that can be sent around again, and good reminders at the beginning. And I think those a list of behaviors and expectations that are read out is very, very comprehensive. That's not to say that we couldn't agree on if we feel the need. There's a particular set of kind of behavioral guidelines that we want to impose in this group, then that's certainly something we can decide. Does anybody else want to chime in on that? Okay. So Khalid, do you have any suggestions here in terms of timeline? Because we're sitting here October 13. That's due. I mean, technically we wouldn't meet until next month, but that sounds then that we have some work to do prior to that.
Well, the timeline is as just the date that I gave you. I know that the Transportation Committee, for example, they met last Wednesday, and they've been looking over the transportation segment, and so they, using the reference of the fiscal, the current fiscal year's needs assessment, they'll be trying to draft forward other transportation initiatives. So I could only recommend that the needs assessment that you see here, and then I'll try to send to you an email. You can use that as a forward reference. Other than that, it would just have to be crunch time meetings if possible between, you know, the committee members. And as I said, the 30th is the submission deadline for the community board to submit the needs assessment. And our general board meeting, I believe, is the 27th, which is a Tuesday. And that's, I'm sorry, the public hearing will be on the 27th at 6 p.m. And, you know, that's where we'll be just getting community input. So those are our dates, the 27th for the public hearing and the 30th for the final submission deadline for boards to submit to city planning for needs assessment.
And so the 27th, does the education committee, do we have to have chimed in on the particular needs assessment already by then, or just a general opportunity for the community to chime in?
I believe it would be both, but I would definitely check in with Mia on the protocols for that one, how we'll be accepting it from there. But I believe it would be both.
Right. And
from the committees and from the public as well.
Yeah. And so is there an expectation, anticipated presence of the education committee or an education committee member or myself at that public hearing?
It would be, I believe it might be prudent, but I'm also not aware if submitting these the assessment digitally to the CB9 office would also suffice. So I will check in with Mia tomorrow just to see what our protocols will be, especially since this is the first time we'll be doing these virtually. See what the protocol will be and what will be sufficient enough for submission. But I'm anticipating it'll just be a digital readout, of course, of the assessments. I will state that in taking a training or information session earlier with Department of City Planning, I'm sure a number of you are aware that the responses that we receive from the varying agencies for the requests are very repetitive or maybe not very considerate of the requests from the office. But I do know that City Planning, what the presenter said, that they were hoping to see more submissions that are related to the effects of COVID-19 crisis. And of course that would be everything, but I specifically remember them saying that that would be something that they would prefer to reason or take a look at submissions directly related to effects of COVID. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well.
Khalid, who said that?
I couldn't give you a name, Beverly, but we, or at least myself, I went through an information session with Department of City Planning for the budget submission. The needs assessment and budget request process. And I can get you the presentation that was shared with us, the slides. And I don't know, I couldn't tell you if it was said on a slide, but I just know that somebody said it, that they were hoping to hear more COVID because of the current situation, the current circumstances. They would prefer to hear more COVID related affected needs. And I know, as I said, I don't believe it's written anywhere. You could have, and so it's not set in stone, but I am positive I heard that from one of the
Could you send that presentation to us, please?
Sure,
because it sounds as if and this is just my opinion, Rio, you and I both know how many times we submit requests and they send back a pat answer. But even if we talk about traffic, if we talk about transportation, how are we going to align COVID with that? And there are some areas in education, like we're talking about now, parents being able to access support and resources that make the situation they're in with virtual learning a lot easier. That's a result of COVID. But if a child is at home, how are we going to partner those two things?
Yep. Yeah, so it does sound like there's some action items for the committee right away. Thank you, Khalid. Between that presentation, but also the needs assessment itself. For some reason, things are not coming through in the chat line, so we're going to have to follow up on this via email.
So I think we're going to have to do a lot of virtual support. Maybe that's what he's lending to. It sounds like to me, virtual support. So all of our ideas and support, like the tutoring and helping the parents, can be done virtually because of the COVID-19. Maybe they're looking for more virtual support.
Okay.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and my guess is that ultimately comes down to allocation of money, right, for these kinds of services, and so yeah, just the timing of everything with COVID makes things a little bit more challenging. Certainly, there's no chance we, even if we wanted to, would have been able to do any kind of principals gathering, because principals are to their neck up in school prep at the moment. But yeah, I would agree with that, virtual support. But my guess would be it comes down to whether the city is going to have funds available to support those kinds of initiatives, and in a way, in a similar bucket as after school supports, right? And whether the city has money available for those things. And right now, it seems that they don't have money for everything, for anything.
Right. Because he's cut the budget, the mayor's cut the budget. So how are we going to get money if right now everybody's operating with skeleton everything?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean that's the case, but we certainly should still do the work, right? But I would agree that I think the budget and the opportunities probably are pretty slim when it comes to anything out of the core services. The core services being just the schools open and the school services running. But everything I'm reading at the moment is cuts, cuts, cuts.
Riel, how long do you think it would take to get a handful of principals together to discuss how we can support them? How long do you think that would take?
It doesn't have to take long necessarily, right? It's relatively easy to either put together a video forum of some kind, and I'm certainly up for trying to organize that. What do you think, Beverly?
I'm on board. You know I'm on board, Riel.
It was a rhetorical question, really.
I know it's a rhetorical question, but maybe because we're sitting here right now trying to come up with ideas, but if the sooner we can get to the principals to kind of like, our hands are yours, our energy is yours. If you had a wish list, what would you wish from us? The sooner we get to them with that,
yeah,
maybe we'd be better positioned to support them. Because right now it seems like every week is something new. And if they had extra hands,
it's even easier just to push out a survey then, instead of even trying to put together a
oh, that's a good idea too.
kind of limits on in-person meeting. But even a Zoom call, I think most people are happy not to have to do yet another Zoom call if they can help it.
Survey sounds great.
Yeah.
Deadline, timeline, what does that look like? Should
For
we work
people
on
to
it
chime in,
together?
that we can have in a shared document for people to participate on. How does that sound?
Okay, sounds good. I like it. Does everybody else like it? Yes, no, maybe so.
I see some nods.
To me, it sounds good. Creating a survey, collect some ideas for what's needed. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Just
guys
have-
think that we should
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
parents too, maybe.
So, Riel, this is Sharon Wedderburn. I just wanted to jump in for a minute, and Naomi, maybe you can help me with this. So my understanding is that CEC 17 has a Title I committee, and one of the things that they'll be working on is how they can use the Title I monies, because District 17, for the most part, is a Title I district, how they can use Title I monies to be able to support parents in learning. So, Naomi, I know you're member of CEC 17. I don't know if you're a member of the Title I committee, but maybe that's something, a collaborative endeavor that you might be able to facilitate.
I mean, that wouldn't be a problem because that's one of our, our big to-dos. And I know that with the Title I, it also helps with the parent engagement aspect and overall the school-wide, depending on if it's just for a particular student or for a particular school-wide where they use the whole student body. So I don't have I think it's very important because that, that 1% is can be a good 1% from a lot of different places.
Right. But I mean, just from the perspective of being collaborative, because each school should have a Title I committee, and as a district, there is a Title I committee, so that might help, one, access the funds because we know that's federal monies that's rolling down, and two, if there's a committee up and running, just having that collaborative endeavor, you might be able to find a school has a particular need, and their Title I committee doesn't know how to utilize those funds.
Yeah, and what's important, what is especially important with that, just coming from myself and what I've learned about Title I, the principals have to be on the same page with that, with that 1%, because if they're not on the same page with not you as a committee, they might want to use the funds for something else. So that's one of
The
the
parents
things.
get a carve out. They get to decide a particular amount of money of that allocated funds comes from parent designation.
No, I understand what you're saying strongly, but as I say again, depending on certain aspects of the principle and depending on the certain aspects of the strong PTA that's in the school, there's a lot of different aspects. Like, I understand what you're saying, that is supposed to be allocated, but we have found in being in the CEC that the funds do not always go where they're supposed to because of the person who is in charge of the administration. So I know what's right, but not everybody does right.
Also,
Right.
unless the Title I funding have strict guidelines as to how that money can be used and for what, and the principals may have, great suggestions, but they must still fall within the guidelines of the use of that money. Unless that has changed.
Again, I'm gonna reiterate it again. I totally understand where you're coming from, but depending on the school, depending on the parent engagement, if you have no parent engagement, they do not know about any Title I funds. And all the principals have to do is fall into the guidelines that it helps the school. So let's say, for example, if there's an after school program that needs to be done in the school and there is a budget of 1% that has enough money to buy into that after school program, the principal will take it and use that for the after school program because it's needed within the school and it falls into the guidelines. She didn't have to ask the parents because it was needed. So I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Batista. You are correct. All that principal needs is one parent to sign off. But you're right. If that school does not have a strong TA or PA or whatever parent, whatever that title is, you're correct. The principal can be creative in having that money used for something else that benefits supposedly the school, but all they would need is one parent to sign off on it.
Thank you, Miss Kim. But I do know that, and I'm not, this is what I have learned. So I can understand what you're saying, Miss Randolph, and what you're saying, Miss Sharon. But I know for a fact that it doesn't work out that way all the time.
Is there also is part of the conversation, just to understand this properly, is part of the conversation whether Title I money can be particularly useful given the current circumstances, and whether, in light of general cuts that the schools might be experiencing, and whether Title I money can be leveraged or utilized, or I'm not sure if I'm understanding that correctly.
No, sure. From what I've learned is that all schools have a budget. Now, whatever that budget consists of, 1% is set aside for Title I funds. In the process, let's say, for example, I just want to say, let's say you need, from my understanding, like, you need certain things that are in the guidelines of what Title I fund is. So let's say we want to do a parent or something with cooking, right? Show parents how to cook or something like that. Depending on how much engagement that there is, or how much necessity that it is, it can be used. But if it's not strong enough presented by the parents, the principal will use it to whatever the advantage it is that they can use it to. So there was one instance, let's just say there was an example where they had a school, and there was and in the school they had the Title I funding. They wanted to do some parent engagement classes, but the principal decided to do something else with it, and because the PTA wasn't, or the PA wasn't strong enough, the principal just went ahead and got maybe with one parent on the side or something, and they did what they wanted to do. Now, was it right? No, it wasn't right, but it's still what the principal had said. So I think the best thing to do is that if we're gonna start talking about Title I, get the principals on board and make sure you know what kind of active PA or PTA that they have, because if you don't, whatever the parent engagement is can bring in more funds, or bring in that 1% to be used within the school.
Right. I mean, I can imagine that if there's a 1% funds to be used, that the principals would love to have access to that money for their budget. That they're having pressures all around. Okay. Well, one of many projects that folks could focus on. Khalid, are you still on? I just wanted to check. Are we scheduled for 7 to 9 or 7 to 8:30? Just to clarify, I think typically the meetings are an hour and a half, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm still here, real. It's really at your discretion, and you can. Give me 1 second. Can you hear me? Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, you were echoing for a second. At our discretion, I heard you. Thank you. At our discretion, right? Can everybody still hear me?
Hi, can I be heard at this point, or?
Yes.
Perfect. So yes, it's really at your discretion, real. We just put in at 7 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. and you may end earlier or later depending on your agenda item.
Okay. Do committee members have a preference?
What is the actual time? I mean, I'll stick with the time.
8:23.
No. What is the actual time for the meetings usually?
I think we've done committee meetings from 7 to 8:30, and we've done it from 7 to 9. So it's up to the discretion of the committee. So that is an item that we can decide on.
I say 7 to 8:30 for me.
It depends
I
on,
second
for
that.
me, it depends on where we are.
Yeah.
It's a hydrant.
Yeah. Look, I'd recommend that we, as a standard item, set them for 7 to 8:30. If the agenda is particularly full, or if we need to go over time, I think we can assess that. But as a general rule, we can have focus meetings, especially once we get to, once we're more organized on specific projects. I think that's a good starting point.
Real. The other thing I wanted to mention before we go forward with anything too is I think I heard some of this came out in the discussions. Again, in terms of setting a foundation, is to decide on the goals. So one of the goals I've heard so far is to create, to develop and distribute a survey That seems to be one of the goals, but we need to think in terms of the goals that we, set some goals so we can work from those as well. I mean, the goals is just broad, right? It doesn't have to mean that we are going to decide on what particular project to work on. But again, that's one of the goals that I've heard so far that came out of the discussion.
Yes, and I've taken note. So once we get to the end, I'll recap all the action items that I've heard, and I'll make sure they're included in the shared Google Doc as well for everybody to follow up on.
Right, because I think it's important to know exactly where we're going and how we're going to get there, in order to have things done, efficiently.
Agreed. Okay, so on that note, it's 8:25. I just want to peek at our agenda for a moment. I think I would like to suggest we close the brainstorm projects for fiscal year 21 off for the moment. If everybody's in agreement with that, we'll move on to the next item.
Public comment.
So just for form, we'll stick to the regular or to the format. A moment for public comment. So if there's any members of the public, any guests that want to take a moment to comment on anything, then this would be the time to do so. So again, it's a fairly laid back format. You can just identify yourself and share with us whatever your comment might be for today.
Hi, it's Kim Robinson again with Councilmember Alika Ampry-Samuel, representing the 41st District. I just want to remind everyone, early voting starts next week. Is it next week? So,
That's right.
24th.
The 24th, thank you. And we just want to encourage everyone to get out and vote, keep spreading the word, and also the censors. We're still trying to, people are still outside trying to get people to fill out the census is very important. So we can just stress that to the individual that you come in contact with. We want to get everyone counted, and we want to make sure that everyone is able to go out to vote. So if you're able to, take a friend or seniors, just really, we want to get the vote out. So again, I want to stress, vote, 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 share the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Anybody else for public comment?
Well, this is Ada. Just for the census, I thought I just read the Supreme Court okay Trump stopping it right now. You can verify that, but I think the Supreme Court just announced it.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You're right, Ada. Came through about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, they decided that that's it. The Supreme Court. But
I missed that.
One thing he's trying to do is he wants 2 separate reports, one for anybody who's undocumented. I don't know how they're going to do that. Another one, but that hasn't been decided yet. But
I think that's correct. Any other public comments? While we have you, Ms. Robinson, I hope you are able to highlight the after school permitting issue with the council member. I've actually reached out to the council member's office about it as well. We have schools in our district, in particular, PS 770 is one of the schools that affected by the DOE permit fee hikes. So if you can raise that issue, that'd be wonderful.
Make a note of it.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the public comment piece. I'll get some more guidance from the Chair Baptiste on the specifics that they would like to see in reports. Typically, the report format at the CB9 full CB9 board meetings is it doesn't seem to follow a particular structure. But I'll get some more guidance. I'm not sure if there's anything particular to discuss now. What needs to go to the board? Unless anybody has anything to contribute to that item, we can leave that for now. Then I'm going to recommend that we add one item here, which is a review of all the action items for the meetings and the goals that we set for ourselves today. I think that is something that typically gets gets recorded, obviously, in the minutes, and I know the meeting is being recorded as well. I'll make sure these get written up in the minutes, just to make sure that we've captured all of them. I wrote down the following following action items. An action item for everybody on the committee to read the needs assessment. It will be sent out by Khalid, but I'll make sure you'll get it from me as well. An action item for all is to read a suggested mission statement and some additional notes that come from the meeting today that will allow us to finalize a mission statement the next time we meet. An action item for myself is to follow up with the CB9 office on protocols regarding the budget process and how to get the information to them. I created an action item for myself to get the educational report from the Diana Richardson office, because I think it is a good starting point for the schools in the district that we're dealing with. An action item for initially myself and Beverly and then everybody else to create a principal survey. And those are the only items I had. Is there anything else that I missed that any one person needs to do or the group needs to do?
Information concerning all the schools that are in CB9? I don't know
Yeah,
if that was a goal or not.
Yeah, my recommendation is that we start with the Richardson report, because I know they list that in completely.
Oh, all right.
That might be an easy first step to get that information without having to do some of the kind of research work again. Well, then I'll add one for all. I am going to give you a summary of potential projects that came out of today's brainstorm, and I would ask for everybody to review those and give some further thought to whether they are practical and interesting projects that excite you, that you want to get engaged with. And part of that action item is going to be for you to consider where you can really see yourself active. Because one of the things that we'll need to do is, once we decide on more specific projects to work on, to assign each one of us to one or more of those to actually get some work done. Any other action items that you heard that I didn't list? All right. Then I will move on to the final. Oh, thank you, Ada. Just got that email. That is fantastic. I'll move on to the final agenda item. Chairperson's report. I don't have a ton to say other than I did want to say this, and I apologize because this really should have been my first comment. I first wanted to express my concern and my well wishes for everybody in the community, especially during COVID times, and I hope that everybody is doing well. It's been a particularly really unbelievable period, and I know it's been more challenging for some than for others, especially for families at the moment. It can be particularly challenging, and so I hope that everybody in this committee is in relatively good health and is able to get through this difficult moment together. I also wanted to step back for a moment and let you know that while I am a very casual person, so I go by Riel, I took the liberty of doing the same with you. But please, if there's a different way that you would prefer to be addressed, please let me know. I know, and so I just do want to make sure that I address people in a way they are comfortable being addressed. That's my first name. That's great. If it's not, then that's wonderful as well. So feel
Yeah, that's a point. That's actually I needed to. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer to be addressed as Dr. Adolphine, but
That great,
not
wonderful.
Mamzelle. Mhm.
Yeah, and I apologize for making that assumption.
It's okay. You didn't know that.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Thank you. Great. Any so that's all I have to say for the moment. Other than that, I'm privileged to be able to support to volunteer my time as you all do in support of the community, and so I'm glad that we got this off the ground. I think there is probably a need for us to meet sooner than a month from now because of the budget issue, and I'll get guidance from the office, and we'll be in touch with you if that's something that we need to do. I apologize. I just remembered there is one other action item for everybody. If you have additional members that you want to suggest them to me would be the appropriate step. And since we only have 4 regular board members, then we perhaps should take a look at expanding the committee, but we can revisit that. Great. If you bear with me one moment, just taking a note. All right, so does anybody have a closing comment or thought for the evening? Well, in that case, it is 8:36. I'm going to call this meeting or adjourn this meeting for today. I want to thank you again for taking the time, and I look forward to getting to know each one of you. I'll reach out to you personally as well. So and if you have any kind of questions or comments for me personally, please let me know. And I look forward to doing some great work together this year. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Good night, all.
You too, and thank you, Mr.
Good night, and you too.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Mommy going to bed. Mommy, I did